1. Houston, we have a problem. Hi. Welcome back to Brothers of the Arcana. I am Alex Aldea.
I am David Ferrigno, or Dave Ferrigno.
Either of those is great. And our guest today is
Father Pat Cuntrera.
Father Pat Cuntrera, who is a good friend of ours, happens to be in the same fraternity as us. And I won't say which fraternity that is unless Father Pat is comfortable with that being out there.
Very comfortable. I'll give all the people in the audience a little hint.
That might give it away a little bit.
So yes, Father Pat is he is a priest of the Catholic persuasion and the I should say the old Catholic Church, correct? So tell us a little bit about what that means, and then we'll move into a couple of the background questions and then other stuff. So yeah, go right ahead.
Well, I am a Catholic priest, but I'm a priest from the Western Apostolic Orthodox Church. Okay, so it's the Orthodox Church, and it happens to be a branch in the United States of America. And when you say Old Catholic Church, you are correct. It is the Orthodox Church is one of the oldest faiths in this world. So yes, it is the old Catholic Church. And it does come down from the old Catholic Church.
So you are you part of the Byzantine Rite Orthodox Church then, or is it a different sort of path?
It's a little bit of a different path. See, and if I can have a moment to explain.
Sure. Absolutely.
See, after Christ resurrected and Pentecost, and he breathed the Holy Spirit onto his apostles and ascended back into heaven. For about the first maybe 50 years, everybody thought of Christianity as a sect of the Jewish faith.
Right.
Okay. Eventually people realized there's a lot of differences here, especially since a lot of the Jewish people were not able to accept Jesus Christ, as the Son of God, as the Messiah. So what happened is it became its own faith, what was referred to as the ancient faith. It was one Christian faith worldwide. And then there was something called the Great Schism. This ancient faith split off into 3 different directions. One, Emperor Constantine of Rome developed the Roman Catholic Church. There is the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Western Orthodox Church. Now, between Eastern and Western Orthodox, not really any difference. The orthodoxy, the faith is the same, but as my Archbishop says, you don't have to learn another language to love it and appreciate it.
Also true. So does your church have a pope or a patriarch? Does it have a head of it, so to speak?
Now, what happens is we do acknowledge the Pope, and we are recognized by the Roman Catholic Church, but we're not bound to him. For example, we don't have to believe he's infallible. My eternal salvation is not based on whether or not I believe he is perfect. So we acknowledge him, but we don't listen to him. The highest you can go is Archbishop. And when there's a problem that needs to be solved, they bring a synod, a gathering of clerics together, and the archbishops figure on a solution. Now, there's one archbishop that is slightly above all others, the highest rank, and that person is referred to as the primate. And I say this, and I got to be careful when I use the word, because people, when they hear primate, they think gorilla, orangutan. No, primate means...
Is he a big man?
Prime person.
Right.
What's that?
Is he a big man?
Taller than me, but thin.
So not gorilla per se.
No. And trust me, a man of infinite patience, because, well, he has to work with me. So this primate...
It's been said before, Father Pat. It's
in charge.
No, I'm kidding. That's fantastic.
Hey, I've always said this. I don't play holier than thou.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to, did we lose you? Are you still, there you are. Okay.
No, I'm still here.
Got you there. Okay. So wanted to touch base. Well, first of all, I credit you, and I have to thank you for this very much. I credit you for introducing me to Brian Bowden originally. I had a wonderful relationship with Brian as a friend and as a mentor of sorts, and as a brother Mason. I've worked with him professionally with some of his remote viewing talents, and I'm just and he had a wonderful episode with us that you may have seen on the show. He was our third guest. So we do really want to thank you for that. And we were very excited to get you on the show as well, to get your thoughts and your viewpoints on a lot of esoteric things. So thank you.
First of all, thank you. I'm honored and humbled.
Absolutely. And
Brian is a wonderful friend and a wonderful person. And I'm very happy that the two of you were able to work together.
Absolutely. So some of the questions I think that we have today are fostering on. So one of the things, a more recent friend is Chuck Dunning. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He wrote a book called Contemplative Masonry. His latest book is Rosecroy Oratory, and just a wonderful guy. He comes from the southern jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite, and has he's attained some level of notoriety as an author on mystical teachings, on contemplative study. So that's meditation, contemplation, all kinds of other things. And actually, I was just showing Dave a mandala that I got recently, a Buddhist mandala. Obviously, it has the swastikas there because the swastikas were originally a Buddhist symbol, not a Nazi symbol. They were appropriated, I should say, misappropriated. But the Chuck wrote a book called Rosecroy Oratory that I'm reading now, and I got a copy of it for Dave. He calls himself an esoteric Christian, or a Christian esotericist. I love that. I love that because I think maybe that's what all of us are that are sort of walking this path. But I wanted to just ask you your opinion, and that's where we're going to get into some of these things of what is esoterics, what is metaphysics, what is the supernatural, what are men's issues, because I think that's part of the big thing facing our fraternity, and how they all work with being a priest, being a Freemason, being a brother, and all of that stuff. So without further ado, what role do you believe that metaphysics plays in understanding the divine and our relationship with God?
Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge the metaphysical. That is what is beyond the physical world. I mean, if you have absolutely no belief in metaphysical, then how can you believe an all-powerful an almighty God that is, beyond? We can't see him. We can't walk over and shake his hand. He is beyond our physical world. So if we have no belief in the metaphysical, how can we believe in God? If we have no belief in mysticism whatsoever, then how can we believe in the mysticisms of the church? So you need at least a healthy respect for those to actually have faith.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. Do you interpret the concept of the soul in esoteric Christianity and well, I'm sorry, I should better say, how do you interpret the concept of the soul in esoteric Christianity, and what implications does that have for our understanding of life after death?
Well, first of all, if you go nowhere beyond the physical, and I remember a movie a few years ago called 17 Ounces, because at the time of death, there is a slight weight loss in the human body, and that weight loss is our eternal soul leaving our bodies. There is something within us, an energy, our actual being that is, it's not this body. This body is just, using some Shakespeare, it's our mortal coil. It's what holds us to this dimension. So there is a part of us that is from God that will live on long after, these bodies cease to function. So there is that part of us. And if you look at all the worldwide religions, they all believe that there is some part of us that leaves our body after death, goes to heaven, becomes at one with the universe, regardless, that there's some part of us that goes on when the body ceases to exist.
Interesting. But you obviously, being a priest, you espouse a certain, and I don't mean large O Orthodox, but small O Orthodox understanding of Christianity. Although, how do you see Christianity in this sense? In other words, do you see it in the traditional, here's towing the line of the way the Catholics or the Orthodox believe, or do you bring a sort of additional esoteric understanding to that practice?
Well, okay. As far as the teachings of the Orthodox Church, the Ten Commandments, the Bible, we, of course, I attend to those. I believe in those. But I have another aspect to my personal Christianity, because I believe, and I'll refer to charity as applied Christianity. So you can't be Christian, go to church, and go back out into the world and ignore the needs of those around you and be an unkind person to those around you. So, and I also believe that God gave us so much, okay? And that, you don't see very many Catholic priests that believe in stones. So many Catholic priests that use a Buddhist mala to pray, that believe in, shielding their home against evil. And I believe, God gives us a lot of things. He gives us ways to protect ourselves, ways to keep ourselves healthy. If you look at the book of Ezekiel, all of the guidelines that are, kosher and halal, they're the same thing. And things that we couldn't comprehend millennia ago, God gave us to keep us healthy. So, it's not just understanding and following, it's seeing all the other things that God gave to us to understand, and also what he gives us to be better Christians. I mean, okay, so a little bit of a giveaway here. You know that I belong to certain Masonic groups, okay? Certain groups that recruit Masons, but are not necessarily Masonic.
Yes.
I am actually I am a Rosicrucian, and I am also a Martinist. And the Martinists have an interesting philosophy. Okay, they believe in prayer and meditation to bring us together to become one with our Creator. And some of the things that we do there, and you definitely have to have a mind for the esoteric. I show up there one day and we're doing energy work. And what I've noticed, like for example, doing the energy work. Well, one, and I know I got to wear a hat when I go outside now because, the third eye is coming through. My energy as far as a healer, people that are sensitive to energies, like they can feel me flaring up. So since I like to heal people, this made me better at being a Christian. Okay. Having a home that is shielded from evil, understanding the demonic. Okay. Knowing that makes me a better Christian, helps me to protect myself and others from evil. So, having this esoteric knowledge, I think everybody should have at least a little bit of that knowledge.
Well, a little knowledge can make you pretty dangerous, right? So maybe the more knowledge we have, the better off we might be on that one. So let me ask you this: how does can you share any insights that you have on the significance of the mystical experiences within the Christian tradition? So where does Christian mysticism go? I mean, you started on talking about a little bit of it, some of the demons and such, but yeah, where does it really go? What are the historical aspects and kind of where does it go? Yeah.
Well, those mystical aspects, those things that a lot of people don't quite understand. Well, first of all, the greatest mystical experience that a lot of people may not even take seriously, and they just do it because it's habit, is receiving the sacrament of Holy Communion. It's one of the biggest mystical experiences that a person could ever experience. It's literally God on earth. Okay. And, I actually had a talk one time. It was a brother Mason, Italian, brought up Roman Catholic. And he actually said that the sacrament of Holy Communion was symbolic. And then he stepped back, and I don't know what kind of a look I gave him, but he said he didn't know how to answer me because it's not symbolic. Okay. Think about this, that the priest has the ability, because of that ordination, and I'm going to talk to you about that ordination in a couple minutes, to bless, to, as a receptacle for Almighty God, to bring down the Holy Spirit and imbue that Eucharist, that bread and that wine, to make it body and blood. And it is truly mystical because, even afterwards, if you were to examine that little piece of styrofoam, I mean that Holy Communion.
No, Father.
Sorry, I still don't know.
Jesus.
For the life of me, I still don't know how they call it bread.
So let me ask you this then. You don't use actual bread? I mean, I know the Orthodox, for instance, they have a chalice, right? And they have the wine in the chalice.
Okay. What we do is, in the Roman Catholic Church, yes, everybody's, understands that little round disc, the Eucharist, which is supposed to be bread.
Right.
In the Orthodox Church, and I went to Long Island to visit my Archbishop, and he actually did an online church service. And he actually had a very special loaf of bread, is actually physically bread. And it did have an imprint on top. Part of that imprint was a circle for the concept of eternity. Yeah. So we took this bread and he consecrated it. And as we went up for Holy Communion, we went out and we took a little piece and we received it. And we also received the wine.
Got it.
So we used the bread. Now, and I'm going to tell you something that I've given, like, for example, for the Knights Templar, the commandery, in Freemasonry, last year I gave the Sunday morning church service. Okay. No pressure. But I'm doing it in front of my Grand Commander, all the Grand Staff, and I'm going to offer the sacrament, something they don't normally get. I'm doing it as a full ecumenical Christian service. So, considering that people might have allergies, I'll be honest. I consecrated grape juice and I consecrated gluten-free crackers. Okay. And I blessed, asked the Holy Spirit to descend upon these gifts, and I used that for the sacraments. And I will be honest, in my emergency case, that I have saltine crackers and a juice box. Okay, because if I have to run out in the middle of the night to do like last rites, part of last rites is the sacrament. Yeah. So I will use these things, and I have reason for it, and I'm not mocking, and I'm not going to use a cookie, and I'm not going to use Hawaiian punch. Okay, but I can use.
What about Capri Sun?
With whole.
No.
What's that?
No. Not Capri. You can't use Capri Sun either. Now, no juices outside of, let's say, just typical grape juice, right?
It has to be like one of those grape juice, 100% juice, one of those things. Not one of those things they call juice that they give kids.
Right.
So, but I will use those because, and I do it in full respect. but it's something like I don't want somebody to have a gluten allergy, and I don't want to have to run someplace in the middle of the night to get something I can consecrate for the body and blood of Jesus Christ.
Sure. So let me ask you this then. Do you think that metaphysical practices and beliefs, do you think that they're essential for a deeper understanding of Christianity? In other words, I have friends who are, and we all have friends who are evangelical Christians, right? Lovely people. I think a lot of them have very deep faith. But, you know, you go to their church, well, the one I'm thinking of, which is a wonderful church. It starts out with, in essence, a rock concert. So you get some Christian music in there, and then it starts in with the whole thing. Almost an hour or 45 minutes is a homily, in essence, where the pastor gets up and talks about whatever he's going to talk about that day, usually some sort of a Bible verse, and then back to the rock concert again, and then you're done. It's all done in about an hour. I was there one time when they actually did communion. They had special single serving pieces of communion, which had two tiers. One of them was the bread or the crackers, whatever it was. One of them was the juice. And in this sort of little box, it's sort of sealed, and you get your own piece, and they hand them out. Nobody blessed anything. And it was kind of like, take your own communion kind of thing, and then beat it, grab a coffee on the way out. So it was very different than what I'm used to in terms of Christianity, which is why I ask, there are no metaphysics there, not that I can tell, right? So what are your thoughts on it?
Well, first of all, you do need some kind of metaphysical understanding. Otherwise, a lot of people, when they go to church, they're just going through the motions. Why do you go to church? Well, because my parents made me, because we went every week when I was younger, because we're supposed to. Why do you receive Holy Communion? Because we're supposed to. Mm-hmm. Okay? I believe that without metaphysics, you're just going through the motions. You are just doing it because that's what you've always done. Once you have a metaphysical understanding, the understanding of beyond what you can physically see in that church, it definitely will strengthen your faith. Like I said, when you understand that it is not symbolic, when you're blessing, that bread and that wine, when you understand it is truly God on earth, okay, you need to understand that, and understand that when a priest, and when I say laying of hands, or which me, it's like, healing touch, I never, hands over, but never touching. When a priest heals, okay, you need to understand what is happening. Is that priest some kind of special guy because, oh my gosh, he healed me? No. I've done healings, some small, some surprising, and I tell people, you know what? I'm just a blunt instrument. I'm just a vessel. Okay, you need to understand the metaphysics to understand that something is being given to me. By the grace of God, and I am giving it to that person. So I am sharing it with them. So it's not me. It's something that's beyond me. And I'm going to tell you something else, because, and this is always something one of my superiors talks about when he talks about authentic faith, and he talks about the true parts of our religion. And I mentioned the sacrament of Holy Communion. Okay, and I also consecrate holy water. I will bless houses. I've got some baptisms coming up. I did a wedding. You always need holy water. It's always nice to have. But, you got to have a priest who is properly ordained. Okay. And I will tell you one thing. 2.5 years ago, when I was ordained, and for everybody out there that's watching this, when I was finally able to clear my mind and hear what was being said to me, okay, yeah, I was a little bit older. Okay, but all right, here's some part of the mysticism that people need to understand. And when I say you respect a person of the clergy, you may not respect them as a person, but you respect them for what they carry. So I took a trip a couple of years ago, and I went to my ordination. And at my ordination, 3 bishops put their hands on me. Now, Pentecost, Jesus Christ rose from the dead. He breathed the Holy Spirit onto his apostles. Go forth, preach, raise the dead, heal the sick. Okay, go out there. And then those apostles, what did they do? Well, they got old. There's a lot of space to cover. They started consecrating more clergy. And it goes down through the ages. So when I say Apostolic Orthodox Church, with the Eastern Apostolic Orthodox Church, that's apostolic too. There is a line that comes down from generation to generation, passing on that beautiful gift that was given to the original 12. Okay, and then 2,000 years later, guess who gets in line? Me. Okay, and if you don't understand mysticism, and if you don't understand what was given, and I will be honest with you, somebody could have told me 100 times over what the definition of apostolic succession means, but until you go through it, you have no idea what it involves. Okay?
Okay.
So you need to understand, and by the way, as one candle lights another, and the flame is never diminished, that gift has not been diminished ever since the original 12. Okay, so you can imagine after my ordination, I'm sitting there in my hotel room, in my chair, just like, wow, oh my. It's like beyond comprehension. If I didn't have any understanding for any kind of mysticism, that would have just been some kind of symbolic ceremony. But I learned that what really happened there, what I could not physically see with my eyes. Okay? And I will tell you, this proof of this, well, I can tell you parts of my personality disappeared. And they weren't really good parts. I mean, I wasn't a great person a few years ago. Good, not particularly great. And I will tell you another thing too. 2.5 years ago, my beard was gray. Now it comes in pure white. Okay? So, yes, and I have no intention of coloring it, because I know why it happened.
Okay.
All right.
I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on why that happened.
So, like I said, this affected me. And, but without that knowledge, for that understanding of, some kind of metaphysical, that mysticism, that all of that wonderful part of our faith that we cannot see, if you don't not even understand it, respect it, and acknowledge it, you're taking so much away from your own faith. Okay? Acknowledge that which you cannot see. Acknowledge that which goes beyond our senses. It will make you a much better Christian, and it'll make you a much better Jew or Buddhist or Muslim, whatever your faith is. Acknowledge that which goes beyond us in our physical understanding.
I appreciate your answer there. That is really cool, and just what a wonderful way to think about not only Christianity but any religion in that respect. David.
One thing I was going to ask. So obviously, it seems like people go through the motions. You're alluding to the fact that there's so many that go to church. We've seen it so many times. People just go through the motions. They're not really getting the concept of inviting deity. And how would you say in today's world, I think our listeners, for the most part, are probably more in tune with the mysticism. But if somebody's not, what would you recommend? Where do they start? How do they get to that point where they can reconnect and reintegrate with God?
Well, you know what? First thing, when you pray, take the time to think about the words that you're saying. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Okay? So, as you go through the words in your prayers, take some time, look at them, think about them, meditate on them. And you know what? I'm going to say this. Meditation, where prayer is when we speak to God, meditation is when we listen. Okay, I want you to take some time And this is where, like Roman Catholics, they love to do that adoration of the Holy Sacrament. They will take some time, sit there, and stare upon a single piece of the Holy Eucharist. Take some time, look at it, think about it, contemplate it, realize what it is. Meditation, I think, is the key. When we pray, we speak to God. When we meditate, we listen. Quiet your mind. Think about what you do in church, why you do it, the origin for it. Okay? Think about what's happening. Think about the words that you say. And, I have this other term. It's not my term. It's a beautiful term, though, because like some people, and they may go through the motions, or sometimes they may say, how do I pray? Well, okay. How about this? Prayer of the heart. Sometimes the most magnificent and powerful prayers that a person could ever say is speaking to God in their own words. I don't remember how to say the Our Father. How do you do the rosary? How about this? Speak to God. Take some time when you're quiet. I have a very good friend of the Hebrew faith, and he reminds me of something. There's a term that the Jewish people use to refer to God. Abba. Father. So, basically, God wants a relationship. It's about a relationship. So you know what? When you pray from the heart. Abba, Father, I'm having a terrible day. I'm scared. I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about my children. I don't know what I'm going to do. Am I going to have enough money to survive? I'm having health problems. Speak to him with your heart. The words, your own words from you. Okay, so take some time to meditate. Take some time to speak to Christ, to God in your own words, and take some time to listen. Now, I'm going to mention one more thing because on this written test I had to take to become a priest, about 105 questions, multiple parts, took me a few months. And it was saying, which of the following, and there was a list of terms, and is like, which of these terms, which one of these philosophical reasonings would you use to prove the existence of God? And I chose one that was called the deontological reasoning. And basically what that means is, and a study of nature, look at a sunset, smell a flower, listen to the song of a bird, smell the grass, the plants, the trees in the springtime. Let your senses take in what is around you, okay? And understand that did not come about by accident. That the only way all of this came about, that we came about, is because of God.
That's lovely.
Sure.
Yeah.
A question for you. You alluded to it before. Setting up protection in your house. Do you feel it's a necessity for an individual to protect themselves when they're praying and when they're meditating, when they're practicing that mindfulness? And if so, what would you recommend?
Well, I tell you, as far as praying, now I will tell you, I have by my front door, I do have a dream catcher. I have a lady friend, I'm allowed to, and she's Indigenous American, so I have a dream catcher. I have a mezuzah, and I have a crucifix.
Boy, you cover all your bases,
Always
don't you?
have all those. What's that?
You cover all your bases.
Got the whole gamut.
But I realize there's two people in this world. People that the devil, people that Satan wants, and people that Satan already has. Okay? And I found out, kind of like afterwards, nobody tells you this before ordination, that all of a sudden you become a lot more interesting to those, to the great deceiver. Okay? So, I mean, what do I do? Okay, you know what I have by my front door. And here's something very simple that a person can do. One, Kosher salt. Okay. I keep a small amount of it in the four corners of my home. All right. And along with it, and you can get these little bracelets, like 2 pair for $10. On here, there's obsidian, there's hematite, and there's tiger's eye. So you take one of them, you cut it apart, you take at least one of each stone and put that in the four corners along with the salt. Okay. And that'll protect you while you're in the home. I wear the bracelet when I go out. I like to carry a little bag of kosher salt on me, but if I ever get frisked, forget it, I'm cooked. Okay, so I will put little packets of, salt from the fast food place in the pocket. Okay, so I'll carry those with me for protection. And I will tell you one little secret I found out. I have a friend, I believe Alex knows who he is too. I'm not going to mention his name. I believe him to be a very powerful empath, very sensitive to thoughts and emotions of others. Okay. And he came to my apartment one day. We were going to watch a movie, hang out. And, he comes to the door, happy, energetic. Hi, Pat, how you doing? Sits down. 2 minutes later, he's asleep. Okay. And why? Because the house is shielded. For an empath, probably about as powerful as he is, it's like constantly being in a room with 100 people, like shouting and yelling. And then when he walked into the apartment and all of it was shielded, all of a sudden he walked into a quiet, like, library, and he finally had some peace.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple months ago, he leans in to me and he goes, by the way, do you realize you have 2 auras? And I look at him and I'm like, I'm ordained, right? You know what I carry. Oh yeah. So basically, learning to shield his home, learning to have that peace allowed him to develop. Okay. So I honestly believe if you're empathic, and by the way, one homily that I did one day, God gives us all gifts. Okay. He makes some of us seers, some speak in tongues, some healers. So if I say that, he's empathic, he's sensitive to emotions, first of all, Satan doesn't give gifts. He takes, he deceives. The only gift you can get. Okay. So I believe that's his gift.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I say a person is gifted, and by the way, when Alex said, yeah, Brian Bowden, as far as a remote viewer, I am blessed. I know 3 different remote viewers. So if I ever need to find someone, I know who to talk to. And
Well, we'd like to have
how can that be?
We'd like to have Carl Petrie on the show as well. Of course, he's just very busy right now. He's got a new series coming out, or a new season to his series, and then a new book coming out. So it's very busy time for Carl.
A third book. That'll be wonderful.
I think so.
Yes, I remember
I believe you're right.
And I remember one day I get a message, they were going to do, like, to pitch an idea to a television station. You can't just say, hey, this is my idea. So he had to put like 3 episodes together. And there was one episode from a part of his life of an event that took place inside of a Masonic lodge. So I was called that day, hey, Pat, you want to come and help out? So I was an extra that day.
Hey, cool.
It was fun. I love behind the scenes. And he brought a lot of colleagues with him. And we had some very, very interesting, enlightening conversations that day.
Lovely.
So, and I remember the one night he invited all of us to come down and watch the 3 episodes he put together. It was a lot of fun.
So
Very cool.
I'm hoping Dave can get us into more of the paranormal stuff, because he's our paranormal expert on the show. So all the stuff that I know Pat and I have chatted about, demons, ghosts, goblins, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So take it away, Dave.
Wow, just put me on the spot there. The gobbledygook.
Sure.
I'm right in time for Halloween, right?
Absolutely.
Well, let's first start with Pat. I know we had this brief discussion the other day. How can somebody identify if there's some kind of entity or an attachment to them that's negative, and what could they do to kind of ward that off from your perspective?
Okay, well, here's the interesting part. I mentioned, now listen, as an Orthodox priest, I'm allowed to get married. I have a lady friend. She is Indigenous American. She's a priestess. She's a healer. We actually go on healings together, and she can detect attachments. Now, the first thing to notice is that if somebody who's in good health, you start noticing that they're weak, their energy is being drained. That physical manifestation. Or did you ever have a moment when, for some reason, you were angry and you could not figure out why? And that's and when I say attachment, when somebody is possessed, the entity is inside them. The attachment, much like it sounds, is like a leech. It's on you. And sometimes that supernatural leech is not very good. So it's like intermittent. Okay. So if you notice a person's energy draining for no good reason whatsoever, if a person is angry, you yourself, you're angry for no good reason whatsoever, okay, there might be a problem. Now, I'm going to tell you, I read a book a few years ago, Psychic Self-Defense.
Oh.
And it was about this woman that joined an occult Christian order and all of the things that were happening. And I almost came up with a flow chart of what you should do if you think either yourself or another person has an attachment or may be possessed. And the first thing you need to do is rule out physical ailments. Make sure the doctor gives you the green light. The other thing is, a lot of us are stressed. Couldn't hurt to talk to a psychologist. Make sure you're okay. All right. Rule the part of it out that's you. Okay. Now, here's two things you can do. Now, and I combine them. One is kosher salt. Okay. And by the way, really expensive. I get this at the $1.25 store. So consider salt scrubs once a week. Okay. Or bathing in salt water. Or the other thing is to change your location temporarily. Now, it's kind of interesting because every year I still feel the need to go to someplace warm and tropical. Love the island of Jamaica. There's something mystical about that island. You have to love a place with more churches per capita than any other country in the world. But what do? I combine two treatments. One is to temporarily change your location, telling only a couple of people. So go somewhere. Tell a couple of people your emergency contact or whatever. And salt baths. So what am I doing? I'm floating in the ocean for hours, out of the day. So I'm getting the salt bath. The ionization of the salt removes the energy of any entity and the change in location. A good thing to do. So go away someplace. Bring the salt with you. Do a salt scrub in the shower. It will help to get rid of those entities.
And is there a common test? The other day you alluded to there's a test where you could even take water or a glass of water at home. Did you want to elaborate on that?
Well, I will tell you one thing that I do. Well, first of all, testing for entities. Let's see. Well, I will tell you, for example, right over here on the shelf is a bottle of water that I'm not going to drink myself. What do I do with it? Remember I told you about exorcising things, taking the evil out of things. Well, that's just prayer, okay? And that's just praying over something, removing the evil from it. So what I do, and I will tell you, with me, the energy lately, right now, the hands, they're burning. Okay, I've got a little bit of extra energy on me. So what I'm going to do is reach right over here, plain ordinary bottle of water. And I'm going to, I'm going to pray upon it. I'm going to cast energy into it. And then I'm going to have, if there's a person who is sick, I'm going to give this bottle of water to a sick person. Okay. What's the worst thing you can do? It's a bottle of water. Okay. But it's exorcised, it's blessed, it has the energy that I'm allowed to be a vessel for to imbue upon it. And I will give that to them. Okay. So, you can pray upon anything. And I saw this book I have to get, the Big Book of Exorcisms. You can pray upon anything to exorcise it. You can do an exorcism prayer on a person. If you're not sure what's the worst thing that can happen, you prayed upon a healthy person. But if you really believe that there is an issue with them, you can do an exorcism type prayer. And I will tell you, if it's a full-on exorcism, like exorcism prayers rid a person of illness, of injury. If it's a full-on exorcism, that's something I'm not really willing to mess with yet or ever.
So when you're saying a full-on exorcism, you're talking about a demonic presence that possessed that person.
Right. So like I mentioned, I've got a friend who he has an exorcism order for Canada, and he has this offer for $1,500. I can teach you how to do exorcisms. And I'm like, nope. I mean, I follow what he does and I listen to what he says, but to me, no part of that is a good idea. Okay. Why don't I watch horror movies is because I know there are greater horrors upon this earth that people don't realize are happening. Okay. So, yes, you can, there are people that can exorcise demons from people. There are people that can remove attachments. There are simple exorcism prayers that you can pray over a person that will help them. You can exorcise like a piece of food, a piece of bread, and make it clean and imbue it with, God's grace and give it to a person and it will heal them. So a lot of things you can do. Mm-hmm. Some things I am just clearly not ready for yet.
And to that end, it seems like, I know there's a thought in the paranormal realm that you really shouldn't speak the name of certain demons, or you shouldn't say names out loud. You shouldn't mess with Ouija boards, things of that nature. Can you elaborate on that from your perspective?
Oh boy, could I. Okay. First of all, when I see these Ouija boards advertised or in the toy store, 8 years enough to conjure up some demon. Okay. First of all, you
remember, kids, you're 7 or under, don't mess with it.
Right. So, yeah, when the Barbie movie came out, somebody did a picture of a Barbie Ouija board. I'm like, come on, Barbie's demonic enough.
Yeah, right.
Okay. But what you're calling forth with the Ouija board, okay, some people may think that if that actually reacts, you've contacted a relative that has passed on. No. You've called for something that is pretending to be a relative. Do not mess with Ouija boards. No. Okay? Now, as far as the names of, and by the way, this is something Brother Brian Bowden mentioned to me. Now, let's see. I'm going to show you a little gift that was given to me for my ordination. Okay? Demons, entities.
Uh-huh.
And this is only like part of the collection.
Yes.
I got a couple more books here too. Okay, put that there. Now, I'm going to mention a little story. Did you ever see a movie called The Craft a few years ago?
Yes.
Those
Yes.
Catholic school, New Witch comes to town. Okay, there's a scene. And when they get off the bus, be careful. There's a lot of weirdos out here. And the girl says, we are the weirdos. They go to the beach to invoke an entity. Now, even as a younger person, they lost me when they said, well, if God and the devil are fighting, so-and-so is the field that they're fighting on. They tried to imply that something is out there is greater than God. No. But okay, I go with the rest of the movie. So they go to the beach and they bring things with them and they're trying to do the four corners and invoke the name of this great entity. Now, for the purposes of the movie, the entity was fictitious. They made up a name, but they didn't realize that the name was close to the name of a water entity. Okay. Now, what happened is, and you can even see this in some of the scenes, it's raining. It was supposed to be a very clear night when they went out there to film. Yet every time they started to film a scene and they mentioned a name that was close to the water entity, it started to rain. Okay? So don't mention the names out loud. Okay? If you read them, good. Don't read them out loud. Be careful. All right? You may be getting to, it's basically like, okay, I'm in the next room. I call out your name. You're like, oh, and you come over to see what's going on.
Right.
Same thing. You say a name, that entity will come through the veil. All right. So don't, if you read it, don't say the names out loud. And I will tell you, that's where people get in trouble. See, the couple days before I was ordained, see, I had to go down to Pascagoula, Mississippi. And a brother helped me. He let me use his timeshare one night in New Orleans. So here I am dressed like, and I'm in New Orleans for a night. So they tell me, oh, there's a new restaurant. Walk down Decatur Avenue a few blocks. You'll find it. It's a nice place. It really was. But on my way down, I passed 3 different witchcraft shops. Or more accurately, I went inside 3 different witchcraft shops. It's not hard to find down there. Go in, look around. And I'm like, oh, incense. Maybe they want that for the ordination. Maybe they wouldn't want it from this place. So these cute little crochet dolls. I'm like, oh, wow, they're voodoo dolls. Put it back. The third store I went into, and this is how horror movies start. These 4 young ladies walk in their 20s, and they're like, oh, what's this? Ooh, what's this? They walk toward the books, the rack of books on the wall. Books they shouldn't be reading to begin with, and definitely should not be reading out loud. That's the part of the horror movie where they're having a slumber party, and they're like, ooh, let's turn out the lights, let's light a candle, let's read the book. Hey, let's read this poem. No. Be careful what you say out loud. You don't know what you are invoking.
Now, you bring a good point up. Clearly, there is magic with a CK. High magic, Abramelin the Mage, Lesser Keys of Solomon, Greater Keys of Solomon, those types of things, voodoo, hoodoo, and all of these other types of shamanistic magic and so on. I'd like to make a distinction, if I could, between some of the shamanistic entities, if you want to call them that, Kirik Sanango, Noya Rao, Bobinsana, some of the plant-based entities that exist, and some of the demons. I think to a great extent, even Saint Bridget was the rebranding, so to speak, of a more ancient Celtic deity. And a bunch of others have done that, where they've sort of taken the old religions and repackaged them. They say, well, you believed in this? Oh, we got another one named blah, blah, blah that's in the Christian religion. So you're not missing out on anything. We'll just, we'll make a saint out of them or whatever it is. And I think we get into trouble doing some of that kind of stuff because it's we try to take the power of it and put it into a repackaged state of like where Christianity takes on all comers kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that, especially as being an esoteric person?
Well, okay. When Emperor Constantine took Christianity and made the Roman Catholic faith, he decided to incorporate a lot of pagan elements. A lot of the beautiful cathedrals that you see in downtown Rome were formerly pagan houses of worship. So he incorporates a lot of things. He incorporates a lot of, the big argument. Well, Christ was not born in the winter. Okay, well, because it was to basically be equated to another holiday. So yeah, they try to incorporate these things without the full understanding of what they mean. And some people might be getting into, like I said, more trouble than they realize. So, some things that people try to incorporate, not good. And when you mentioned, like, for example, I had a copy of the Ars Naturalis, Solomon's special prayers. Okay. And I read through that. I remember because, I have a little problem with the ticker. One time I'm in an emergency room and I decided, you know what, that's a pretty good time to bring up the first prayer for healing. Okay. But that was Solomon's prayers. No harm there. But some of the things people try to, like, for example, the book Transcendental Magic. It's an interesting read as far as anything magical, putting into practice. I probably would not try anything.
Are you familiar with the Gallery of Magic series?
No, I'm afraid not.
Dennis Poisson from the Foolish Fish podcast / YouTube page. He's got a very interesting YouTube page filled with, he comes from a pretty magical background. Fascinating guy. Trying to get him on the podcast. He's very, very busy. So we'll keep trying. I'm sure we'll get him on sooner or later. But he talks about that they've sort of made magic more accessible, because one of the things with magic is it's very complicated. It has a lot of rules. It has a lot of symbology. You need to learn Enochian or other such things. Are you familiar at all with that type of thing, like the Enochian language, which they call the language of the angels, or potentially demonic language, or other things like that?
One of the books that I have that I'm going to get to with the reading is the Book of Enoch that I'm looking forward to. And the story of Enoch is actually quite interesting. And gee, no wonder at the First Council of Nicaea they decided to make that one of the books that they ripped out of the Bible. But no, I do not know about Enochian magic. And like I said, I would have to take some time to read it, study it, understand it. But as far as putting it into practice, I'm not sure I would. I'm not sure I would get everything perfect.
I think that's probably.
I think Bowden alluded to that too, because he on his podcast he did discuss that. I guess he had a friend that was trying to speak the Enochian language and kind of screwed it up, and essentially had a couple of years worth of issues because of that. So it's certainly something you don't want to dabble with if you're not doing it right.
Right. You got to be careful. I mean, little things that people do. And it's interesting because I'm on vacation one year and I'm talking to this couple, and they had something in their backyard, a fairy garden. And it's just a little area of the yard that nobody touches. And they put little trinkets and different things in the yard to attract positive entities. And then one day the landscapers cleaning up the yard, the grass was quite tall there, and they just cut all of it. And not realizing what they were doing, the one guy that cut the grass, all of a sudden he starts having runs of misfortune. Okay, so realizing what was happening, when the couple decided to reestablish said fairy garden, he said, I really want to give something to put in this garden. What do you recommend? He did. The garden was reestablished and the misfortune ceased.
Yes.
So, you got to be real careful with this stuff. And as far as mispronouncing, I'll be bound to mispronounce something, and then here comes trouble. So, I would stay away from it. I would read it to understand it, but I don't think I would put it into practice. Too difficult.
I suppose that's true. Do you have any personal experiences or stories about the supernatural, or other ghosts, demons, anything else you've encountered that's something that comes to mind that was particularly, really out there? Kind of, I couldn't be mistaken, in other words, for anything else?
Well, I thought it was interesting because, let's see, I know the one time I went on a paranormal investigation of one of the lodge buildings with Brother Brian, and he brought me along as bait.
Bait. That's nice.
And it turned out the lodge was very, very active.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed that, like, when all the entities that we see, they're in the form of orbs.
Yes.
Now, the interesting thing that I'm finding out, sometimes I turn my head like, oh, there's a fly in my apartment. And I'm like, in my house. And wait a minute, that's not a fly. It's too big. I could swear it was in the form of an orb. I know that, okay, my third installation is Master of Wyckoff Lodge. First of all, by some strange coincidence, everyone at that table is gifted in one form or another. And my lady friend said, "Who's Claude?" I said, I'm not sure. I don't know. And she said, "He seems very nice." She detected an entity. And then we go upstairs to the lodge room. There's a picture there of a guy I've seen 100 times, like the first master in that building. And I'm like, "Hey, Claude, how are you?" I see you've met Christine. But Christine said something, and a few people saw it, that as I'm taking my oath at the altar, an orb flies past.
What?
And I was told, yeah, Claude wanted to wish you luck. Okay. So apparently I've interacted with entities. I'm not at the level where I see things. I mean, one time I'm talking to a woman at the one of the resorts I was at, and very nice person. You know, interesting job. She walks around cutting fruit, giving it to people all day long, and selling her gospel CD. And I'm talking to her, and it's something very strange and familiar about her. And we were talking for a while, and then she walks away, and I'm like, was I just talking to my grandmother, my deceased grandmother?
Yes.
There are interactions I have with people that, wait a minute, are they, who was I really talking to? So, but I know that, as I was told, I'm never alone. I know there's a lot close by with me. I just don't see it yet.
I don't think anybody's ever alone in this world. I think people don't realize that, and to some, ignorance is bliss. But I think most of us have an entourage in a sense. You know, whether it's a couple entities or, you know, might be departed individuals, or, you know, to your point, even there might be individuals or souls that are associated to, you know, a particular building or place, you know, that are kind of stuck in that space. I know even my own lodge, there's definitely entities that are still there and interact from time to time. So,
yes, I remember Brian saying, a very dear friend, excuse me a second. I want to make sure my phone doesn't give out on me. Plugging it somewhere else. Sorry. There was a very dear brother that had passed away, and his remains are at a lodge, Fidelity Lodge in Ridgewood.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the night,
Brother Zach.
the last time Carl Petrie was there. What's
Brother
that?
Zach.
Yes, it was Brother Zach. Yes. And Carl is giving his talk, and all of a sudden, Brian nudges me. And I know what that means. Zach walked into the room. And all I know is we go downstairs for dessert afterwards. And all I know is, for some reason, something I never would have picked for dessert, I ended up having because I just had to have it. And it was a piece of cake. And I know the way Zach loved cake. I'm like, wait a minute, was he talking about that to me and I didn't even know it? And all of a sudden now I want to have it. But yeah, we interact. There's a lot more around us, good and not so good. We need to be aware of it.
So one of the things that so again, I go back to my evangelical friends because they seem to be the most sort of purely Bible-based Christians that I know of, and they sort of reject everything else outside of that as a possibility. One one of the things that they don't like, and his wife had a yoga studio at one point, and she chose to give it up because they thought that it was just not in keeping with their Christian faith any longer, and a lot of things. He has an issue with all breath work. In his mind, all breath work is a modality or you're opening the door to some sort of spirit whenever you do some kind of breath work, whether it's Kundalini, Reiki, that kind of thing. You're exposing yourself to certainly like something like transcendental meditation that has Hindu overtones, or yoga, because yoga is really a prayerful thing if you really think about how yoga is done and what you're doing and what you're invoking, so to speak, when you're doing yoga, even housewife yoga, or whatever you want to call the newer stuff that's not the traditional Indian yoga. But so what are your thoughts on that in terms of a lot of this stuff that's now seeped into the culture that can oftentimes have a very metaphysical or spiritual bent to it? And what are the dangers of stuff like that, if any?
Okay. Well, first of all, I will tell you, some people say, hey, Pat, you do Reiki, don't you? And then they see me visibly get tweaked or upset over it because I don't like the term. Personally, I don't like the term Reiki. I use the term healing touch, healer, vessel, okay? Because I understand where it comes from. And I will say that and a lot of the things people call New Age, okay, I look at it this way. I'm not adverse to gemstones. I'm not adverse to certain things, but I acknowledge in my heart and soul, I know where it all comes from. It comes from God. Okay. So that for me, I don't see where that parts from my faith. A lot of people that are New Age, and I almost refer to it as a godless religion because all of a sudden the energy of the universe is source. Wait, you reduced the creator to basically a Duracell? But they're studying all these things, but they don't acknowledge our creator. And that's, I think, where it could actually become detrimental. It can almost become, I guess, demonic. Mm-hmm. Now, I will tell you, because I saw the list online, all the things that, we're not supposed to do because they're, the work of the devil. And, yes, veganism is on the list. But I didn't make the list up. But I do know that yoga was on the list, and I had a little discussion with my archbishop about it, okay? Now, personally, the yoga style that I follow does not involve any prayers or meditations. It was started by an ex-professional wrestler, okay? You look at that bunch, it's like more like writers and housewives and busy businessmen than, your typical yoga crowd. So, I never associated it with that spiritual aspect. But they talk about the postures invoking entities. They talk about the energy, Kundalini, which in martial arts is ki or chi. It's also referred to as prana. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they refer to, Kundalini is a serpent, and that serpent wraps itself around your spine. So they're saying some of these postures, these asanas, are just by holding them, and you could be thinking about something else, are invoking entities. And, those entities can be detrimental. So I was fortunate because I said, oh, by the way, I do a little bit of Tai Chi, and they're like, yeah, that's not a problem. Don't worry. Okay, good. But I also know some of these hardliners, they have a problem with martial arts in general, because you'll notice in a lot of traditional martial arts schools, there is a small temple in the corner. Mm-hmm. Okay. And sometimes you put gifts on that temple. Okay. But that temple is for the ancestors or the progenitors of the style. Okay. And we're not praying to them. It's like a tombstone. It's a remembrance. Thank you for giving us this martial arts style that we love and practice so much. So yeah, sometimes there's a lot of mistakes made. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, as far as things like energy work, as I was told centuries ago, different people of different faiths had a lot more contact with each other. Christian monks and clerics had a lot more contact with those in the East. Okay. And at one time, Christian clerics practiced meditation, energy work, breath work. It made them a better receptacle. And I will tell you for what they received at ordination. And I will tell you anything meditation, breath wise, it helps me to calm my mind down, clear it out. And I truly believe it makes me a better receptacle for that magnificent gift that I was given at ordination.
That's very interesting stuff. Dave, any burning questions? You want to keep that? I can keep throwing questions at him, but if you want to dig in, you go right ahead.
So why do you think they remove so many books from the Bible? Like Constantine especially?
That's a good one.
Okay, well, you look at it this way. I'm going to take Enoch as an example. All right? Now, Enoch was a good and holy man. He was a man of love. He was a man of faith. He prayed and he meditated every day. Okay, so he didn't belong to a formal religion. He didn't go to a church or a cathedral. On his own, he prayed. He meditated. And at the end of his life, he translated into heaven. And that's the word that's used. He translated into heaven.
They faxed him over?
Now, what's that?
They faxed him over? How did he translate?
Interesting, because, well, first of all, how dangerous is this to an organized church that a person was able to go to heaven by preaching and meditating and being a holy man and never stepping foot inside a church? Okay, how dangerous is that? Now, okay, translated into heaven. One day that it kind of got to me. I had an idea on this. We talk about vibration. You know how I am with the healing frequencies. And you know that there are frequencies that raise our overall vibration. One thought that I had is maybe he raised his vibration so much that he no longer vibrated on the level of this plane of existence, and then vibrated on but he vibrated at the level of the next plane of existence. Okay, so he raised his vibration and could no longer exist on this level.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, because I asked this question of Eric Metz, and I also asked this question of Tim Hogan. In terms of how you raise your vibration, give us a breakdown of how you do it. I mean, how are you able to do that, or how do you work on raising your vibration to that level?
Well, okay, one of the things, let's take a look at the physical aspect, okay? Get rid of things that are low vibration. You know, look at the crowd you hang around with. Are they people that raise you up or lower you down? If you hang around with 5 drug addicts, you're going to become the 6th. If you hang out with 5 millionaires, you're going to become the 6th. Okay? You are affected by the people you hang around with. Hang around with good people. Okay? And I know you do, because we all belong to the same club. Okay. Second, what you take in. All right? Now, I'm not saying go vegetarian, but I'm saying maybe you want to get rid of everything low vibration, junk food, things that are a detriment to your health. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, thoughts. Okay? Eliminate the negative thoughts. Don't say bad things to yourself. And you know something? Your mind doesn't know the difference between what you think and what actually happens. Okay? So, don't think, hey, I did a terrible job today. Everything could have been just so much better. No, you think to yourself, hey, I did a good job and I can do better in the future. Okay? Try to think as positively as possible. I also believe in prayer and meditation. Okay, so prayer every day. I have a morning and an afternoon routine. I got to put in an evening routine. Actually, I have a morning and an afternoon routine, and I don't want to say anything about the evening routine because it's usually the thing that I'm reciting in my mind as I fall asleep, and too many times I never finish it. But prayer, quiet time for meditation, listen, prayer of the heart, and I will tell you, like I say, this afternoon. And I've integrated a lot of things into my life. So this afternoon, the candles and the incense are going to keep going. And I'm in together, my energy work, my exercise routine, and then leading right into the prayer. It's all one thing. And then by the time I'm done with that, I just want to sit on the couch and relax and just enjoy the peace that I feel. But I will also say that I was made aware of healing sound frequencies years ago. And the easiest one to look into is a 432 hertz frequency. Okay, you listen to that. It's all healing. And it also raises the body's vibration in general. Okay. You also want to raise your vibration? Practice love, practice kindness. Okay, it's not easy to show kindness to your enemy. You know what? Somebody cuts me off on the road. I used to have a signal I used to give with my hands.
A one-fingered
I do a
salute?
different
Is
one
it
now.
this one?
Almost.
Move over a
What I
couple
do
fingers.
But I do the cross, and I got to get through this the right way. And I do the sign of the cross to whoever passes me up. Okay, a sign of love and kindness, which, by the way, really flips some people off. Oh boy, you should see them. But no, they do something to me. I return it with kindness, and that is not easy to do. Okay, so practice love and kindness every day.
So do you feel, I just know from my own experiences, several times I've gotten very angry and have said things that have really affected certain relationships that I've been in. It ended some, it interrupted some for up to even a couple of years. And when I was in that anger, it felt like I was not really there anymore. Like I was sort of asleep and something else was at the wheel, right? When that anger came around, or that pain, or that the depression or whatever it was, it almost feels like it's like I take my hands off the wheel and something else grabs on and drives the boat, right? So I don't know if, does that make sense on some level?
Yes, it does. It makes perfect sense. Again, when I said earlier about attachments, you ever have bouts of anger that you don't know where they come from? Well, maybe something is affecting you.
Mm.
You know what? First thing you need to do, remove yourself from the situation. Okay? And it's like you're yelling, I'm yelling. I don't want to yell anymore. I will talk to you later. Remove yourself from that situation if you can. Hey, go home. Salt scrub. Take some time. Remove that negative entity. Relax. Go to sleep. Next morning, things are better. And you know what? I've learned two very powerful words. I'm sorry. It's really difficult to apologize sometimes. Because you're hurt. Person said some things to you as well. So you know what? It's just like, listen, I had a bad day. Things were affecting me. I don't know what came over me, which is the truth. I don't want to lose your friendship. Maybe say something like that. And you might be surprised that the other person will apologize back. So, hey, I was having a bad day too. Hey, let's forget about it. But remove yourself from the situation. Go home, do a salt scrub, swim in the ocean if you could. my lady friend tells me, like, even like the trips I make to Atlantic City, even if I go out to the beach and just dip my foot in the ocean, it'll have a positive effect. Okay? So you know what? You go to Atlantic City in a few weeks, and I know I will see you there. Okay, so walk out to the beach, dip your foot in the water. Okay? You change your location for a few days. You did a salt bath. Hey, do a salt scrub in the shower. Okay? And then remove anything that might be trying to attach itself to you or too close to you. All right? Keep the salt close by. And one more thing that I keep, and unfortunately, even in our gentle craft, people sometimes are not nice. I don't know if you've ever seen me carry this before. They sell, I might have shown you the smaller one that I found at all places, Five Below. But do you know what this is? It's a selenite rock.
Oh, I've heard that.
It's used for absorbing negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will use it for healing purposes. But if I know I'm going to be near a person who is quite the negative person, this will be in my jacket pocket to protect me from that hatred, that whatever. And when I say cast evil upon me, they may not be muttering a spell, but arguing, being loud and considerate, that's casting a spell as well. So I will keep that on me to ward off the negative energy. And by the way, you'd be surprised how much negative energy you pull off of people just going to a store, running errands.
Yeah, for commuting or anything else, especially.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Dave, you want to tell the story of when you were commuting and the kind of stuff that sort of would come upon you at that time?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm an intuitive empath as well, so I used to take the bus all the time to New York City, for work. And I don't have anxiety or depression or anything like that, but there was a lot of days where I'd be sitting on the bus and I'd just feel this overwhelming sensation of negativity, anxiety, whatever else. And I realized it wasn't coming from me. It was coming from the individuals around me, that they were just loathing going to New York for work or loathing their lives or whatever their circumstances were. And I think, Pat, what you're alluding to is absolutely true. You really have to keep a positive mindset. And, I really had to become cognizant of that, especially taking mass transit, going to bigger venues. I mean, you go take the train out of Penn Station or somewhere, you're around thousands of people at rush hour. Clearly, you're going to pick up some weird energy and negative entities, and you got to come home and cleanse yourself from that as soon as you can.
Well, I will tell you, like I said, these little bracelets, these obsidian, hematite, tiger's eye bracelets, and I'll send you the link. They'll send you like 2 pair for $10. Wear them, one on each wrist. And if you're in a situation where you can't wear them, try to keep one in your pocket. Okay. Now, I'm also going to tell you something else too. Again, with the lines of gifts that people give me. A couple things that I was given a few years ago, and I always keep these on me too. It's amazing all the things I pull off of myself when I come home at night. Okay. But one, here's something good to have. Have you ever heard of Saint Benedict?
Yes.
Okay. Saint Benedict, the patron saint of exorcisms and protection. Okay. As a matter of fact, that cross on the one side, if you know what it stands for and you can read Latin, that's an exorcism prayer.
Okay.
Always good to have on you. All right. And show it to me. Even the cross that I wear is a St. Benedict cross, because you can see that if you were to take a look at it closely, the 2 sides of the metal are imprinted on it. That's number 1. Number 2, oh my gosh, my lady friend, she's known for giving me gifts dealing with protection, she gives me a talisman. And when I found out what this was, okay, this invokes all 7 archangels. Now, I was told that's very powerful, good to have on you. And I was told if it's blessed, if you don't know who put the blessing on it, take the blessing off and put it on yourself. I know who put the blessing on it. And by the way, double-sided amethyst. So good for perception, third eye. So a lot of things I keep on me. Got the bracelets. See what I wear around my neck. All good things to help keep the evil away. And yes, when I get to my hotel room in Atlantic City, well, let's put it this way. When I check out, they're going to find salt all over the floor.
Well, I guess they find all kinds of things all over the floor in Atlantic City, so probably salt's not such a bad.
Oh gosh, yeah. Don't walk barefoot on the rug, whatever you do.
Oh, God. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
It was funny because last January I was in Atlantic City. And I made very good friends with this guy. He's a duke. He runs this military order that started in Italy, and he wanted to do some nights. And he said, "Hey, we should go into downtown Atlantic City and find a church." And I was like, "No, please don't. No." I told him, "Listen." When he looked out the window, I explained it to him. Okay, but what I did was, I said, "Listen, any room I consecrate is a church." Okay. So we knighted 3 people. Cynthia Rothrock was one of them, martial arts legend, wonderful human being.
Wow.
But I had the room consecrated. When I was done, I had a prayer to remove the consecration. I chose not to. I left it behind.
Really?
All I know is I was very comfortable in that room. So, but yes, I will be consecrating my hotel room.
Okay. That sounds pretty awesome. So one of the things that we get into in Freemasonry, as not so much because of the doctrine of Freemasonry, but if there could be said to be doctrines, but more the fact that it's a fraternity. So it's made of men. It's made up of men. So how does in your experience, do you think that men's struggles with faith and spirituality differ from women's?
Well, I've never really spoken much with women about their spirituality. I'll be honest.
With your
ever since I started dressing a little,
like Christine, I'm sure she's very spiritual.
Well, she has her very own. She has a unique. She's actually half Indian, half Italian, and she was raised in the Roman Catholic Church. Did all the sacraments. Okay, so if I took her to church with me, she can receive Holy Communion. But she decided that as she got older, the other side of her family was calling, and it called her to the faith that she calls Earthways, the faith of the indigenous Americans. So she did struggle with that for a while. And she said she spoke to her deceased grandmother that said, child, this is the way. And she embraces it. And the interesting part is that when we talk about religion a lot, and whom we would call God or Yeshua or Adonai, she calls Creator. And I see not one thing she does that goes against what she learned as a Roman Catholic or what I know as a Roman Catholic or an Orthodox priest. So it's interesting. She did struggle with it. And I know there are some people that struggle with their faith too. I thought it was interesting. I talked to one couple, and it's unfortunate the way some people are driven away from the church and their faith, and I don't consider the two to be the same. But, one woman was saying, her and her husband wanted to get married. And the priest said, they want to do a real traditional ceremony outside, have the arbor, everything else traditional. And the priest said, no, it's against the Catholic Church to do ceremonies outdoors. And that made them lapse Catholic from the day of their wedding forward. And they didn't raise their children in the faith.
Wow.
So, and it's unfortunate that some of the struggles that people have with their faith is what the people of the church do to them. Now, I'm going to tell you something.
Okay.
One of the things I like about being Orthodox is that I'm allowed to give Holy Communion to people the Roman Catholic Church turns away. Now, when Christ says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, he who believes in me shall never die. Your pathway to heaven goes straight through the sacrament of Holy Communion. Your salvation, we're told to believe, is based on that sacrament. And you're just going to so willy-nilly not give it to people? I would say something unpriestly at this point in time, but I'm not going to. Okay? Now, there was a woman I met, and she struggled with her faith, too. She had a problem. Her first husband was abusive. She got away from him. She lived. But when she got away, she was with child. She had nowhere to turn, nobody to help her. She did the only thing she thought was possible. Okay? She got rid of the child. And that's something that hurt her so badly. All right? And something that she deeply regrets to this day.
Right.
And she struggled with that for years. And what bothers me is she shows me a letter that was mailed to her by the priest in her church. In so many words, don't come back.
Jeez.
Okay?
I believe it.
So a lot of people with the struggles that they have, unfortunately, might be caused by, people, the people in the church, the clerics. And a lot of people, they get shaken in their faith. My mother, God rest her soul, when her mother and eventually her father passed away, she stopped going to church. I offered to bring her Holy Communion. She didn't want it.
Why?
I don't know. And the whole thing of, the fact that there is an issue, but because it came from me. Now, I also had another friend that struggled with his faith. And God bless Joe Carini, the gym he had that I trained at for years. And he was known for training a lot of football players. Like when Tiki Barber made his comeback, guess who trained him? They always sent a plane to bring him down to football camp for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Matt McCann from the Chicago Bears showed up to help us out at a bench press contest. Okay, good man, beautiful soul, wonderful heart, been through a lot. His mother passed away. He was devastated for a long, long time. Fell away from the church. Okay. And, then he decided, and one day he decided to come back. And this was years ago. I was only a Eucharistic minister. He says, Pat, can you stop by here on Sunday? Because the gym was open Saturdays and Sundays. He couldn't go to church. He says, Pat, can you stop by here and bring me Holy Communion? Okay. I bring him Holy Communion. We pray together for a little while. He came back. I mean, loss does cause us to question our faith. Look around us in the world. Look at everything that's happening. And some people strongly question, if God exists, how can this happen? Well, God gives us free will. And some people don't necessarily use that for good. So, a lot of things I hear, a lot of things that happen in people's lives. Usually it deals with loss. It causes them to question their faith, to struggle with their faith.
So let me ask you this. What's the biggest spiritual challenge you think is facing men today?
Let's see. Well, a lot of people, I see faith making a big comeback, which is good. But the biggest problem I'm having is people becoming unsteady in their faith through loss, through the world around them, really questioning, is God out there? And if so, is he even listening? So, trying to put together their faith with their lives, that's a big struggle. But to these people, they have to learn that, well, first of all, when you're happy, pray. When you're sad, pray. When you wake up, pray. When you go to bed, just start putting a little bit more prayer in your life every day and watch the way it changes. Sometimes I say, I give thanks for the small miracles in my life. Little things that happen that just make life a little bit easier. You pray, things just get better. Unfortunately, the first time things start going wrong, what's the first thing that drops out of a person's life? Their faith. And I will tell you, there is a certain complacency in our craft. I'm going to tell you something somebody told me the other day. He goes, I go to lodge meetings. I don't have to go to church.
Jeez.
No, it doesn't work that way. We had a nice little talk about it.
What?
And I'm going to be baptizing his child next spring.
I like to hear that. Yeah.
What would you say? Because I think that's all too often true. Clearly, you start questioning things, like especially things go haywire in your life. You're down in the dumps. Whatever else happens, things happen. Obviously, it's life happens, as they say. What would you say? How do you keep that faith, and how do you strengthen your faith when you're constantly praying and you're asking God for help and you feel like there's no results?
Then, just keep on praying. Just keep on praying. Keep on believing. And it's interesting because, of all things, I was listening to a clip from the movie Evan Almighty. Okay? Remember Bruce Almighty?
Yep.
Remember the sequel with the Ark?
Yep.
Okay. So the wife and the kids leave. And they're in a restaurant, and the wife calls over a waiter. And it's Morgan Freeman's character, the big guy. And she talks to him, and then Morgan Freeman's character says something back that's amazing. He goes, when you pray to God for strength, emotional strength, does he give you strength? Or does he give you the opportunity to become strong? When you want to become closer as a family, does he fill you with warm, loving feelings for each other? Or does he give you the opportunity to grow together as a family? Maybe it's part of our test. And maybe that's what will make us stronger if we don't forget. We don't forget prayer. We don't forget our faith. There was a movie that came out a while ago, God's Not Dead. And it came out on one of these Christian streaming services. And in the movie, Dean Cain, remember Superman, Lois and Clark? Okay. He plays a guy in the movie, a businessman. He's a real jerk. Honestly, a bit of a stretch for him. But his girlfriend tells him she's got cancer. He breaks it off. Bye. And then he goes to visit his mother in like an old age home. And, he says, and the mother's non-responsive, just sits there staring blankly into his face. And he goes to her, for all you did, for all your faith, for all the good in your life, look what happened to you. I said, look at me. I am a terrible person and I have everything. How do you explain it? And in the movie, the mother all of a sudden becomes cognizant, and she says, Sometimes you're in a prison and you don't even realize it. The people that have everything in life, they forget about faith. Life is good. I'm rich. I'm powerful. I have fans. I have followers on social media. Okay. And that's a prison that you could leave at any point in time. And yet you choose not to because you like it so much. Okay. So maybe these are ways we are being made to be stronger. And maybe if we had everything easy, that would mean we're already in the dominion of Satan. We're already lost.
Well, that's a big statement to say. I mean, so you made mention that one of our brethren said, if I go to lodge, I don't need to go to church. I always bring up this idea of what David Hawkins said, Dr. David Hawkins. They used to call him Doc. Just a wonderful guy. He espoused the idea of devotional non-duality, where you're non-dual. In other words, you transcend thought in a Eastern sense, but it's devotional. You still acknowledge that there's a God, and you look to create that reconciliation with God. One of the things that he said was keep holy company as much as possible. And he didn't mean by keeping holy company going to church. He meant be in other words, when we do the work of Masons, when we have the conversations that we have, when we are contemplative, when we think about those sort of symbolic things and talk about that kind of stuff, that is keeping holy company, right? So that is being a part of something bigger than ourselves. That is, in a sense, as Jesus said, when there's two or more gathered in my name, and we're not necessarily gathering in Jesus' name, right? So it's an ecumenical thing. There were Jews, there were Hindus, there were other people. But we're gathering to do something that's devotional, something that's bigger than us, something where we do still have the Bible open. We do still think of a supreme being that's in the room. So my question with that in mind is, how does the role of community, what role does community play in helping men to navigate their spiritual journeys, especially when regarding topics like vulnerability and emotional, mental health and spiritual health?
Well, that's just it. Sometimes we're the result of the people we hang around with. If we were to hang around in a community, and I know that there's a couple Masons out there before they joined, they hung around with a crowd that wasn't very good. I know a brother Mason that he did hang around with a crowd that wasn't very good, and he was definitely on the wrong track. Now he hangs around a lot more with just Masons, so he has that positive influence around him. I actually know a couple of cases like that. So they're the ones that they can encourage us, and they can help us strive to be better. And one of the things I found that's very interesting, and it's funny because I remember one time somebody said for a meeting, wear a tuxedo. I said, I'm going to wear a black shirt. It doesn't exactly go with this. He goes, well, you can wear something else, can't you? I said, no, this is kind of a thing now, But one of the things that I've noticed is that dressing this way, one, because I can still feel the collar all day long, reminds me of my faith, but it's awakening other people's faith. Okay. And I will tell you, 2 days after my ordination, okay, so it's the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. I come home. It's Sunday. Monday, I'm invited to, we do it. My lodge does a double wreath laying, and then I go to a barbecue at another lodge. And and I'm sitting around at a table with people of the different Christian denominations, someone who is Jewish, and a lovely gentleman whose holy book is the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, mm-hmm. And we had a beautiful conversation about faith. And it was loving, and it was caring, and it was informative, and it was respectful. It was actually interesting because the Jewish person in the crowd, I'm driving home. I'm not 5 minutes away from the building, and I get a phone call. I'm like, what's wrong? Is everything okay? And he goes, no, I just wanted to tell you that was a good conversation. It was he was, I guess, almost taken aback how respectful it was. And yeah, we can bring each other up in our faith with that contemplative company. We can bring each other up in different faiths. I mean, one brother, older gentleman, doesn't get out too much. And I noticed he tells me he starts watching this Hebrew channel. Wonderful. And then I find out he gets involved with this community, with this rabbi. And well, tonight for the High Holy Day, he's going to Rabbi's house for dinner. So, and when Rabbi needs a minion, helpers, he gets called. So he's grown in his faith, and that's a Lubavitcher rabbi. Okay, that was the word.
Oh, Lubavitcher, yeah.
And he's grown in faith with this person. He's grown in his faith, and that's wonderful because there were others around to talk to him, to encourage his faith. Mm-hmm. There are some people like we talk about a few things, and I remind a few people, hey, I got a kid that needs baptizing, or can you come over and somebody said, can you come over and bless my house? I'm like, sure. He goes, what do you want? Like he was implying money. So give me a cup of coffee. He goes, is that it? Okay, make it a big cup of coffee. But he wanted his house blessed. He wanted his house holy for him and his son. Okay, so that's a beautiful thing. So yes, the crowd you have around you, and sometimes in Freemasonry, we talk about a lot of things. We don't talk about faith, and that's unfortunate. But more and more, we are talking about faith. We are being, reminding each other of it. I'm that one reminder too, and I'm honored to do so. So yes, we can bring each other up. We can pray. We can be together. It's amazing. I'll get messages or calls. Hey, Pat, so-and-so's in the hospital, like a relative of theirs. Okay, give me a name, and I will put them on my prayer intentions. Yeah. Every morning I have, and they appreciate that and they love that. One brother actually invited me over to, the way he said it, his baby mama, didn't say wife, she was in a coma.
Oh, gee.
Can you at least offer her last rites? And I did. She went home 2 weeks later. And I don't mean home to heaven. I mean, I'm like, so, and now he's my best friend. I said, don't forget about your faith, because I won't. Okay. I hold her hand. I talk to her. People in the coma hear you. Couldn't give her Holy Communion, so absolved her for her sins. Holy water, blessing. She wakes up 2 days later.
It's incredible.
So the fact that he acknowledged the faith, and I told him, it's not me. I'm only the blunt instrument. But he is reminded of his faith. The fact that people say, can you pray for someone for me? We can pray together too. How many times I get invited? There was a York Rite chapter. They were going to do a ceremony, and somebody made these ephod necklaces with the 14 stones of the ephod, not the 12. And there's a story behind that too.
Well, they got
it says, can you bless
the back, right?
You got it.
So the ephod was just to let the audience know it was the traditional breastplate of the high priest of the Sanhedrin.
Right. And it also grounded them too electrically, but that's another time. But the two stones that I call the magic 8-ball stones. Yeah. So he goes over, Pat, can you he always likes to have me over to offer prayer. One time I showed up in all, for this event in all my vestments. I prayed over holy water, just bless the bracelets. Sometimes I'm called in for blessings. Sometimes I got a text message last night at 11 p.m. to come over and offer prayer at a certain ceremony. If I'm free, I will go. So it's interesting because it seems to be an awakening of faith. And by the way, the brother that invited me, I know he's Jewish, but he knows I'm going to say a nice ecumenical prayer. Okay. So you know what? We're waking each other up.
I love that. That's fantastic. That is fantastic. That's 100% right. We are waking each other up. So Dave, we have our lightning round, so to speak, in the last 10 minutes or so. So you want to fire away to Father Pat and see what if he wants to shoot back with some zingers.
Fire back with the lightning round.
That's right.
So, with all the so-called evil in the world right now, do you feel the pendulum starting to shift? You're alluding to the fact that people are becoming more involved in faith again. And do you think that's going to be the avenue for the change and the catalyst for it?
Yes, I see, because I pay attention to social media, like parades through town in Spain, in France, in celebration of a sacrament, in celebration of Christ. I see universities, students getting together, gathering in prayer. Okay. I see how many, what is it? The Crown Prince in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East changed to Catholicism. 1 million people in the Middle East change over from Islam to Christianity, to Catholicism. Okay. Yes. And my thing is, practice what you are preaching and what you are being preached. Okay. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, yes, a little shout out to my own weekly homily channel, which surprisingly is called Coffee and Rosaries. It's on YouTube. And what do I say every week? Love one another. Love one another as God loves you in faith. Love one another. Show compassion. Show charity. Even if all you can do, you have money, give money. If you can't, give time. If you can't, give a prayer, give a kind word, give a smile. Act. Apply your faith. It's not just the turning to faith, but it's the applying of the faith that will save us.
What advice would you give to an individual that was turned away from their church or clergy? Because I can tell you, I even had this personal experience a couple of years back. I was asked to be the godfather of my cousin, and their baby. They wanted me to be the godfather when they were baptizing. At the time, I was married, and I didn't get married in the Catholic Church. So basically, the priest just said, "No, you can't be the godfather," because even though I was previously a Eucharistic minister, everything else, and they chose somebody else that essentially never went to church or did anything. And it was kind of almost laughable because it's just like, okay, so you're preventing me from...
Unfortunately, that's the problem with the priest and not the church.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I had a problem with a Roman Catholic church that, didn't want me there as a Freemason. And I went to another church that didn't have a problem with me whatsoever with it. Okay. Unfortunately, the church in heaven is perfect. The church on earth needs work because we are mortal men. We make mistakes. We sin. Okay. So, you know what? If you want to go back to church, resume your faith. Do it because you want to, because you want to grow in your faith, because you want to receive the sacrament of Holy Communion. Don't do it because somebody else tells you. Okay. And it's going to feel real weird going back to that church for the first time. But you know what? Bear with it.
Got it.
So what about, what do you believe faith can help with for men to confront societal pressures around the current ideas of masculinity and what it means to be a man today and their own mental health around that topic?
Well, first of all, I really hate the way they say, oh, toxic masculinity. Okay. Masculinity is not toxic. Okay. Weak men, non-masculine men, those are the ones that hurt people, that beat women. Okay. Okay. So the church wants us. Look how men are pictured in the Bible. Okay. They are strong. They fight. They defend. They love and revere their wives. They protect their children. Okay, the church tells us what true Christian masculinity is. We just have to be able to see it, to understand it. Okay, and yes, that's the model for masculinity in our lives.
Got it. So that's very interesting stuff. How can men incorporate esoteric Christian principles into their daily lives to foster personal growth and responsibility? I guess it's a follow-up to that question right there.
How can a esoteric principle? Well, first of all, you know what? Don't just follow how about read about the faith, study the faith. You know what? Maybe pick up a chapter from the Bible. Maybe just find some way to practice your faith. Okay, so maybe find some time to meditate. Find some time to think about your faith, to understand. Take some time to understand what you do and why. Okay, and that's a good basis. And then there's something you don't understand. Well, definitely, go out there and find something to read, to learn.
That's very interesting. Dave, anything else you want to add?
Do you have any Bible verses or books in the Bible that you would recommend individuals start with?
Dave's having a little bit of connectivity issues, I think. So I will just wrap up for the both of us and just say, Father Pat, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. This has been a fantastic episode. I think we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of interesting things, and you've been able to sort of open our eyes and hopefully open the audience's eyes to what it means to be a Christian, how one could be of service and be devotional while being esoteric at the same time, and how those possibilities are able to then be put into a community to make the world a better place. So I really want to thank you. And if you do have anything to plug, you said you have your own YouTube channel, and we would love to be able to plug that and put a link to it if folks are interested in being a part of that. So what is that again?
Okay, if you go to YouTube and you type in 3 words, coffee and rosaries, and every week I put up a new homily. I'm not pounding the Bible at a podium or anything. Mm-hmm. It's just a casual discussion, much like I am right now. And I just talk about the gospel, and I talk about using it in our daily lives.
Got it. So that's a lovely thing to be able to listen in on. And we will ask that our audience check out Father Pat's channel. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think it should be very interesting. And Pat and I know each other very, very well through the fraternity that we're a part of. And I have a ton of respect for him, what he's been able to do, and the work that he's been a part of, both within the fraternity and without. So with that, thank you, Father Pat, for being on the show. And until next time, my name is Alex Aldea. Dave Ferrigno is somewhere in the ether. And this is Brothers of the Arcana. So thank you again, and see you later.